Francis, who passed away earlier today at the age of 88. Now, a scheduled service is planned at the Vatican shortly. Let's now speak to Newzroom Afrika's Mnisi, who has been following the pontiff's life since he started getting sick, and Father Runaine James Radine, who is a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Gqeberha and is now furthering his studies in theology in Rome, in Italy. Thank you to you both for joining us. I'd like to start with you, Father Radine. Just if you could describe the atmosphere right now in Rome, hours after the announcement was made of the passing of Pope Francis.
Yes, good evening. There is a sort of prayerful silence, I would say, lingering in the air today here in Rome. Yesterday, a very different kind of mood with Easter Sunday. The Pope made an appearance, which would have been his last appearance now. But today there is some sense of sadness, of great loss of the Holy Father, who is very much a part of the life here in Rome.
And Father, would you say that, I mean, of course, he was quite ill for some time, but even though he was out and about yesterday, that there were more hopes that he was recovering well, and so the news was still received with quite a bit of shock?
Yes, it was quite a surprise. He was very ill in hospital, hospitalized for about 5 weeks, and he was discharged, returned to the Vatican, and he seemed to be improving, using less dependent on oxygen and so on. And in the last 2 weeks, he's been coming out more into the Basilica to pray at St. Peter's, to St. Mary Major. Last Thursday, even went to visit Regina Coeli prison to greet prisoners before the Easter Triduum. And so it did come with some shock, some surprise this morning when we heard about the news of the passing on of the Holy Father.
And Linda, you've been covering, of course, the events as they've been taking place with the Pope's ill health as well. When you saw this seemingly upbeat, a bit of more energy, of course, he didn't appear too well, but he was out and about just yesterday. Did you kind of get a sense that, you know, we still have some time?
Well, I think, Masa, from the moment that he was released from the hospital, you'd recall that there was an appearance that was scheduled after that, and he was seen for the first time in public, and that offered a glimmer of hope for a lot of Catholics. You know, because before that, and while he was in hospital, there was a great sense of uncertainty within the Catholic community, a lot of them praying for a better outcome, really. And when he was released and when he was discharged, you know, from the hospital, there was that glimmer of hope that perhaps things are getting better. You'd also recall that there were daily updates on the Pope's health, and those indicated that there was, although at times the improvements in his health condition were just minor, but of course this was great news because it meant that, you know, the situation had gone from critical but stable to now a direction of him recovering. So certainly, looking at, you know, the visuals from yesterday, he appeared to be somebody that was indeed gaining strength, looking better than what you would have seen previously after he was released from the hospital. So the expectation was that he would continue on that trajectory and get better.
And in a couple of moments, there will be Mass held for the Pope. Could you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect moving forward now?
Yeah, so this is one of the important rituals, Masa, that take place after the Pope passes away. You would have seen the Vatican issuing out a notice earlier on that this is basically going to be the ascertainment of the death of the Pope, one of the initial rituals that are performed. And there, you'd recall that, and you know, Cardinal Kevin Farrell is going to be leading, you know, that particular ceremony because he is indeed the Cardinal Chamberlain, so he'll be leading that particular ceremony there. There'll be other cardinals, but there'll also be family members. This is when the body will, you know, be moved and placed into the coffin. There'll be the sealing of his his apartment and all of those. These are like initial stages where the death will basically be certified. And after being certified, what will be affixed to that would be the doctor's report. So all of those initial stages are going to be done now. And the assumption is that there'll probably also be the issuing of the death certificate. I spoke to Father Hugh O'Connor about, the significance of that moment, because family members will also be gathered there. His body is going to be there, and what that moment really means. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
So one's got to remember that the Holy Father is a human being, and he has a family, and he has friends, and he has people close to him. So while it will be very ritualistic, and it would be the family, and it would be the closest cardinals and friends to him, it really is an expression of a human emotion, a human feeling of grief, of saying goodbye, of farewell, and of paying the loss, of paying those last respects. Especially important for his family, I think, because, once you become a priest, while there is a closeness to your family, when you become a bishop, when you become an archbishop, when you become a cardinal, you're given over to other people. Other people view you as their father. Other people claim to be your sons and daughters, and they want that closeness. So in a sense, your family can't claim you in the same way while you are alive. They have to share you. And this is a moment when they share with you in that moment of saying goodbye, farewell.
Quite important to remind us of that. We kind of forget sometimes because the Pope is so much larger than life, it seems, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Masa. And like Father Hugh there spoke, essentially it's just a moment, because after this there will be, of course, the mourning period. There'll be, the viewing of the body. There'll be the funeral. So it'll be quite busy, right? And because everything will be happening in a public space. And like he says, that people that feel like this, they knew him personally, this was their father. So really it's a moment also for the family to just, immerse themselves in the moment, to get to understand what has happened and obviously say their final goodbyes.
Father Runaine, I'd like to bring you in here. I mean, as we heard tributes being pouring in all day, and also hearing about Pope Francis' legacy as well. For you, what are some of your take-home lessons, what you'd say you'd learned from Pope Francis?
I think Pope Francis represents our part of the world, being a Pope from Argentina. So automatically we have, all of us who are students here in Rome, we have this appreciation about his leadership style. And he's been very accessible, and he really loved to meet people up to the end, really. He wanted to be among the people, pilgrims and so on. And so I think that leadership style, that openness, that humility with which he carried out his Petrine ministry, and reaching out to people on the margins, speaking up for the poor, the marginalized, those on the peripheries of society. So these are kind of the aspects of his life, of his ministry, of his teachings that will always remain with me.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well with us. Father Runaine, I'm going to let you go. If you want to hear a little bit more from Father Runaine, he will be on the channel a little bit later, speaking to my colleague Naledi Muleo as well. But also the word humility, Linda, that has popped up over and over again when we speak about the legacy of Pope Francis.
Absolutely. And you'd recall that in everything that the Pope did, one recurring theme has been, simplicity, humility, one with the people. And it's something that we're also going to see during this period, during his funeral, the period of his funeral, because, of course, he rewrote some of those, rites that are performed, those ceremonies that need to be performed, during the mourning period, wanting something quite simplistic. I mean, we're going to also be seeing his body being placed inside the coffin, while, other, popes preferred a different type of coffin. He preferred and he wants just a wooden coffin with a zinc lining. What we're also going to be seeing during the process of viewing the body, you know, other popes are often placed in a raised pedestal where the body can be viewed, you know, by all to see at the St. Peter's Basilica. What we're going to see here is that his body will be viewed from inside the coffin. There will be, of course, some pomp, a bit of pomp and ceremony, because everybody will be gathered there, you know, to pay their final respects. But also, there's something that is going to be quite different with how things are going to be done. Other popes, you know, are buried at the St. Peter's Basilica. He's not going to be buried there. He's, in fact, going to be buried at the St. Mary's Major. And one of the things that, you know, we spoke about when I spoke to Father Hugh was the significance of St. Mary's Major. And this is what he had to say.
Now, not all popes are buried historically in St. Peter's. So this is not a break with tradition that Pope Francis wants to be buried in St. Mary Major, where there is the icon, Our Lady Salvation of the Romans, that the Roman people have a great devotion to, that Pope Francis has a great devotion to. He always goes to that church before he goes on a trip, and when he comes back, he goes back to pray before that icon, that image of Our Lady. He feels her maternal care and her protection.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for helping us to understand what's going to happen over the next couple of days, as well as we bid farewell to Pope Francis. And that's where I leave things for you this evening. And Naledi Muleo is standing by, of course, with Newsfeed PM, the late edition. But from me, Masa Gegana, it's bye for now.